Welcome back to a very special edition, season 2.5 of Quantum Alchemists. I am your host, as always, Mr. Alchemystic, but you can call me B. I am joined by my very gracious co hosts, Mr. Quantum himself, Alex Romero Vingian.
What's going on, B man? It's so good to see you. And I'm still laughing from the season 2.5. And you
2.5,
guys do not
not
you have
quite
no
season three yet. We're not ready to start launching season three, but we felt compelled to share with you guys some insights and some points of view on the current state of world affairs and have some updates in our own lives as well. It's been about what 6, 7 months since we did the season finale of two. Been a bit. I've changed scenery again, back in California. California 2.0.
California 2.0. I love it.
So yeah, it's an ever evolving journey of mine that I'm on. It's been quite a journey, quite a road. Um, uh, Left Georgia with my mom to come help my grandparents because my grandma unfortunately is suffering from a very severe bout of dementia. She's in the late stages, and my grandpa really is 87 years old, trying to take care of what's basically a child at this point. And she doesn't really recognize anybody. It's pretty tragic and hard to deal with. And so, yeah, my mom and I came here to try and help him out as she transitions to the uh, next journey beyond this world. So, yeah, heavy stuff, man. It doesn't get any easier. You go through this awakening or whatever you want to call it, the spiritual journey. A lot of people think it's just supposed to be sunshine and rainbows and woo woo and positive vibes and everything's good. But unfortunately, when you're on this path and you're walking it the right way, you're going to face challenges. You're going to face um, phases that you don't quite understand. The 3D isn't going to line up with your vision. Yeah, you're waiting on divine timing. And personally, um, I'm actually taking it in stride pretty well. I know that I've been prepared for this part of the journey because my mom's kind of going through it and I've been through it. So I feel like I've been placed here as a sort of guide for her to get her through this phase of her life. She's going through the clear and purge, a death cycle in a lot of ways. She, split up from her husband that we were living with in Georgia. Her and her husband decided to go their separate ways, and that brought us back here because this is a landing spot in California with our family. And, obviously my grandpa needed the help. So it was a certain scenario where it's not ideal, but it's kind of where, the 3D has taken us at this point. And I know I'm pretty grounded in my purpose at this point of understanding the challenges of the people around me. It's not really about me anymore. It's about the collective and it's about my family. And I know that with the experience I've had spiritually in this journey, I know that I'm equipped to help my mother through this death phase of her life, of the end of the old, having to go through all her stuff, purge all her stuff, and then come move cross country into this situation, which is very difficult. Seeing her mother at the end of her life, and her mother doesn't recognize her, and it's just a whole lot of stuff. So, but I'm feeling surprisingly empowered by the situation because I feel like all the preparation leading to this moment has been for me to get through this. And if I hadn't gone through what I've been through the last couple of years, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd be a mess. And right now, I'm just centered and calm in the chaos. And that's pretty much what this journey is for: is to um, condition you to not focus on the environment, but to focus inward and to keep you calm in the chaos. So that's where I'm at.
Can I
Uh,
chime in? Can I chime in on two things?
yeah, absolutely.
First of all, I'm so sorry that that type of situation has presented itself, but I did want to wish you on a happy new year, and knowing that, this new environment, this new change. You said two very important things, and I'm going to say them in order, okay? One of the things that you said that resonated with me and stuck was the fact that and as you're going through it, you made a very important distinction, which was that uh because you're on a path and a journey, you understand that there's an evolution that has to happen. So you're focused on that and not necessarily on the destination, which is where it leads to, right? And so knowing that you're not, see, because uh enlightenment is not in order to reach enlightenment, there is a journey and a path that you have to go through for the aha moment to present itself, right? And then the other thing that you brought up, which is also very important, which is a common thread that I notice among, people who are at this type of caliber of talking or understanding, is we tend to be, like you said the calm in the chaos, the eye of the storm. The storm is all around you, but you are the center of gravity of that storm, and it's happening around you, but you're not letting the storm affect you. And that is also another thing that happens to initiates, and it's a quite common theme, actually. If you start looking and reading into Rudolf Steiner, and you start looking into Manly P. Hall and things like that, that seems to be a common thread that they speak about in these things, which is when you become an initiate, you become this magnet for chaos, and it's just part of the natural ruling order, which is like uh your frequency emits order, and chaos subconsciously senses the order, and it starts freaking out. So
Well,
you
what it
start
does is like
getting
you're right. Like it creates chaos around you because what happens is you're a higher frequency, you're a higher vibration, and when you enter chaotic scenarios, there's an unraveling, right? There has to be an unraveling, and I they feel like looking back at my journey in Georgia the last year, is like I was sent into that situation because my mother needed to get away from her husband. Her husband was, I don't want to go too much into detail into him. I don't want to, put him down or talk shit about
you
him.
don't need
I
to.
very well could, but there's a lot of problems with that situation. My mom and her husband, their marriage when I entered the situation was not. It was just kind of they weren't close anymore. They were just kind of getting through life, right? And my mom wasn't happy, and there's just a lot of problems with that scenario. But she felt like she was stuck there, and they had moved out there into Georgia from California during COVID, and my mom never really felt at home there. She felt like she was missing her family, and she just kind of was coping and trying to get through the days, and her husband wasn't very accommodating. He was kind of like one of those old school boomer dudes that think that their wife is supposed to just cook and clean for them and they just sit around and do nothing. And that's exactly what he did. He was just clicking on his computer all day. He's 72 and kind of crippled. So he wouldn't do much. And like when I came in there because she needed help. And she told me that I need help around the house. He won't do anything. He can't do anything. He's basically, he can barely walk. So I went in there to try to help them. But in the process, I kind of unraveled that relationship because it needed to be. God was trying to separate her from that situation because she wasn't being valued and she wasn't valuing herself by staying. And throughout the year plus that I was there, she slowly realized like I don't belong here and I don't want to be here. And then her husband wasn't liking me around because I was making her happy and he's miserable. So like misery loves company, and that was kind of his thing, was keeping her
You're the
miserable because
giant,
he was.
you're the giant flashlight in her life.
Yeah. And so he ended up giving her an ultimatum that I had to go, and she's like, I don't want him to go. If he goes, I go. And he's like, fine. So we bailed, and like now she's got a call from his daughter today, and his daughter is just like having to help him wash his clothes, and do his dishes, and this dude's like useless. He's basically a useless human, and I was there helping him, and he didn't recognize that I was making his life easier. And her and I both were. We were there basically like making his life so he could just sit on the computer all day and watch TV. That's all he did, and drink. He would just drink from fucking dawn till dusk, you know. And so we enabled him to have this really like lax life, and and he didn't appreciate it. And he saw me as a threat or a problem, and that's what happens is like when you are on a higher vibration than low vibrational people like him, they see you as a threat. Even though I'm there making his life easier, he sees me as some kind of like leech or threat because I'm living in his house. When the reality was I was doing all these little things, helping her get the groceries. I installed like bidet hoses in their toilets. I built an awning for him. I built like a shelving unit that he bought from Timu. I built it for him. I installed stairs in their backyard so that he could walk the stairs in the hill down to the pond, so he could walk down to fish with his grandkids. Like I did so much stuff for this dude, and he just didn't care. He saw it as like my obligation or something, or I don't know. He thought because I was living under his roof that I was some kind of leech when it was like it was the opposite. He was leeching off of me and my mom and all the things that we did for him. So anyway, like I said, I don't want to talk too much shit about him. He is where he's at in life, and that's his lot. That that's what he's attracted is the situation he's in now, where he's alone in a big house and we are gone. And now I think he's finally realizing what value my mom brought to it. But back to her, she wasn't recognizing her own value in the world, in life. And this is one of her problems in general. And it's something that, as my mom and I've gotten really close over the last 12, 13 months, 14 months. And I've been able to see the patterns in her life and her own problems with her own internal world. And, she's very religious. She likes to go to church. And there's kind of a little bit of a philosophical difference there in that she's very wrapped up in the church theology and dogma, and I'm on the periphery, kind of pointing out the problems with the church dogma, and so but I see like deeply into her internal world and the things that she attracts to herself. For example, I feel like there's some kind of inversion in her energy where she attracts things she doesn't want. And I've been noticing this for a long time and trying to help her with it. And, I'm telling you, God's inside, telling her God's inside. He's not outside. He's not going to come outside and help you. You need to get inside here in your temple, in your body, and change that in order to allow him in with it inside of you. There's these little tweaks that Christianity needs to get it right. It's obviously been distorted over the centuries to be this
Well,
thing that keeps you down energetically. But hold on, let me just quick
let's
finish. Just let me finish this part real quick. And so, anyway, this is just a small example, right? We have a dog with us, right? We brought my mom's dog, and for New Year's, the dog gets fucking scared at fireworks, right? So New Year's night, it was kind of rainy, so there wasn't that much fireworks at midnight, and the next day we were like, oh, we hope that there's no residual, like there's no leftovers that people are blowing off on New Year's Day, and there wasn't for a while. And then I went in there, and she's like, oh, it's so great. There haven't been any fireworks. Literally, as soon as she said the word fireworks, boom, boom, two mortars blew off. Right. So it was like to me, it was kind of this moment where I was like, oh shit, she's attracting the things she doesn't want. And that's just a small example. That's just to illustrate for you guys how I believe she's affecting her reality, right? Because she doesn't understand that she is attracting the things she doesn't want. Because this has just always been one of her problems. It's like she's a worrier. She doesn't see her value. She doesn't see her worth. She thinks she's unworthy because she's in the church, and that's what the church tells you. Um, so and there's an inversion in her energy where like she's attracting things she doesn't like, doesn't want. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to, but that was just the point. Is like I'm at this place now where I see it in other people. I see the things that
yes.
the way they're affecting reality. I see it very clearly how they need to tweak their energy. And that's why I'm so centered in this place where I'm at, even though there's chaos and craziness and my poor grandma and then my poor grandpa and what they're going through is like a lot of people would be um, very off centered because of this environment. But to me, it's like it's driving me more to my center and getting me, empowering me more that I know that I'm in the right place because I'm starting to see things very clearly. And so anyway, that's it's just I feel really
Two things.
good. I probably shouldn't, like go ahead.
Two things. One of them, uh, one of thank you so much for sharing that with me to go through, and putting your personal life on display isn't always the most comfortable. Um, I can only say that because of our very first interview where I did the tell all, which, by the way, those of you who haven't seen Talking to Strangers, where I gave B the exclusive on my life, I recommend you go check that out. Um, so I appreciate you sharing that with us about what's going on. And then the other thing was, you know, um, I wanted to bring it back to the particle and the wave because you said a lot of things there that were very resonant of what it means to be a rigid particle or living in the wave, and you said a lot of examples of both.
Hmm.
Um, and so, and because I know that a lot of people are going through similar situations, a lot of people are living out the center of the storm as you are, as we so eloquently put it in your situation, chaos around us and trying not to get caught up in the storm itself. And knowing that our roles here, our purpose here is, for lack of better words, greater than ourselves, right? Like I can't tell you exactly what it is because I don't know. We are the whole point is, the whole point of self-realization is that's what we're trying to find out. We're trying to find out what is the purpose, what are we trying to get to, and then also not just it's not just the purpose of which we're trying to get to because you can have a purpose of getting to somewhere and you can get there and not be happy. It's about getting to the place you're supposed to get to while remaining your sense of happiness, internal happiness, right? Because otherwise, what the hell are you working for? So you want to make sure that at the end of everything, like you're working towards your ultimate happiness because you want to make your inner child happy. That's like you winning the video game, you winning the Matrix. If your inner child is happy, you won the game. Period. And the older you get, the more you tap into that, the more levels that open up to you. But we, tapping into your creativity, those are all inner child things. Tapping into um creating these boundaries of how you deal with chaos are inner child things. Things that maybe we didn't learn as children that we have to then as adults go and create new boundaries and say, no, we're not going to let this affect us. You know, as we get older, one of the things that we fail to realize is that we're going back to revisit the traumas that we have experienced throughout our childhood that we couldn't and did not have any control over because we were subject to environments that we may or may not have put ourselves into. It just depends on the situation. But I'm only talking about this in context from like what I can look back and reflect on as I'm moving forward in life, and I'm like, oh man, like I could see how all of this relates to my inner child because I'm trying to work on things that most people it would make their eyes bulge, but for me, I'm having a really good time. I'm making myself really happy in the process. Um, but also at the same time, like try not to get lost in it. It's like, if you remember back in the days when you got a video game that you really like playing and you had to go to school the next day, but you're up till like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, you're like, I just want to play some more. It's kind of like it's that. So, but finding that place, your happy place, right? That's what Happy Gilmore talks about, finding your happy place. And you want to go there. So finding your happy place in chaos isn't always the easiest. In fact, it's probably one of the hardest things to do. Um, it requires an extreme amount of self-reflection and self-acceptance, and self-forgiveness. Forgiveness for things, again, we go back to things that you had or did not have control over. Forgiving yourself for the things that you could have done that you didn't, and forgive yourself for the things that you did do that you shouldn't have done. But ultimately, if you learn the lesson there, and you carry those on to other places that you go to, then these are the situations where, like, for example, in like the case of your mom or like your grandparents and stuff like that, like you may not fundamentally change them, or change their person as they are, but maybe at some point you'll help them realize or understand why why things turn out the way they do for them, over time, whereas they could start making so. And this is one of the things that someone told me, Chicasso, if you're watching, man, I still love you, bro. I hope everything's going really well for you. But you told me something a really long time ago, actually, if not really, a few years ago, where it was, a 2 millimeter shift in perception, over a long period of time. Imagine like a compass or like a map, right? If you make a 2 millimeter shift on a map and you're going in a straight line over, let's just say you're going weeks or months, that over time is going to take you completely away off course from where you were trying to go. And we're talking about just a 2 millimeter shift. It's not even a lot. So when you put it into that perspective, it's like, wow, like just a small detail can really take you off, off on a kind of like this conversation right now, just went on a, on a way tangent.
I mean,
Two
or it
millimeter.
bring you back into to where you're supposed to be, right? If you correct course, right, it can center you immediately. And I really feel like the past, I've been here for a little over a week, and I feel like first couple days were absolutely chaotic, absolutely just like me and my mom are looking at each other like, what the fuck did we do? Because it's just my grandma and grandpa are just, it's a lot. It's a lot to take. I don't want to go too much in detail, but I mean, you can imagine my grandma's like a child, doesn't recognize anybody, doesn't really listen to my grandpa. He's like the authority figure, and it causes her emotions to go wild. So it's just it's really insane, that situation. Like it's sad. It's really sad to see your grandparents in this state of degradation, and that's really what it boils down to. It's absolute degradation. My grandma is just degraded to the point of being infantile almost, and my grandpa is just the end of his rope, dealing with this woman that just he can't control or he can't deal with, and she's always trying to escape the house and this and that. So um the first few days were, oh man. And then all of a sudden I just kind of locked in, and like I made this new painting that really kind of put me in this like really solid spot where I was just like, okay, um this is where I'm supposed to be. And I really, seeing the way my mom's reacted to it and the things she's going through, and I saw a lot of parallels in my upheavals, because I've gone through several upheavals just in the past couple of years. I'm moving out of my place with my brother into this place in North Hollywood where I got kicked out after 3 weeks because my roommate was an absolute madman. And then I had to go to Georgia and then being there for 14, 15 months. And now coming all the way back to California, all that in the last year and a half, 2 years max. Like it's just been upheaval after upheaval after upheaval of just me having to purge stuff, get rid of stuff, and kind of really just tune down to the focus, right? Like in the physical and the spiritual, like just so course correcting, like I was telling you in the pre-talk about, I was looking back through my marker art, like I was doing marker art before I started painting. When I first had this, lightning bolt of awakening, this Kundalini experience that really kind of shifted my entire life and my entire perspective. The first 6 months or so after that experience, I was going through spiritual psychosis. It was, I mean, there's no other way to put it. And when you like really understand what that all entails, and I thought I was had my finger on the pulse, and I was like, it was like I was hit with a lightning bolt of inspiration of, making art. I was making all this psychogeometry art, all these designs, and I thought I was on it, but I was like Alex said, I was slightly tilted, right? So I'm thinking like my manifestations are coming in and I was going to be some big figure, influential figure to help people. But like, I couldn't even help myself. Like looking back, like if all of my manifestations and my visions had materialized at that point, there's no way I would have been able to hold it. Like my body was just not centered or grounded in any fashion. I was off in another world, literally. And but I had to go through that experience because, as people who are, trying to help others, like that experience basically molded me into the person I am now, where I can see my mom going through not exactly the similar situation because she didn't have a kundalini or any, real spiritual revelation. Like she's just going through a period of life in the tarot, you call it a death cycle, that I recognize. And I
Yeah.
recognize these little like minute shit things like in energy. And like, it's just like I've been through it to the point where now I've been fashioned into the type of person that can lend a helping hand. Or like
You're
if
an
even if I
you're
saw
an
someone,
adept now.
what's that?
You're an adept now.
I'll let you say that. I don't want to say, toot my own horns, but I know I've been tuned, I've been fine tuned and sharpened to a point where like I could help somebody else going through something similar because I've been through it. It was just the road I had to walk as an initiate through the spiritual, all the phases of spiritual awakening, all the phases that I read about in books like this one over here. And this is really reading this. It's Rudolf Steiner. It looks like it's backwards on the. Maybe it'll switch.
No, it looks good on my end.
Okay, good.
You even
So
have
it's
you even have a little auto zoom and everything.
Yeah, so Rudolf Steiner collection. It's 4 books. It's an outline of occult science, which I haven't gotten to yet. It's the longest part of this book. But there's Christianity as mystical fact, which is absolutely ties in a lot of it connects the dots for a lot of things, and it's essential for any mystic who is also has a Christian background because it really puts together a lot of the mystical aspects of Christianity and how it all ties together to the ancient mystical traditions of like Egypt and the Greeks, and it's really, really profound. But then there's the way of initiation, which if you haven't gone on a certain place in a spiritual journey, that will make no sense to you. But and then the sequel to the way of initiation is initiation and its results. So this book came to me at the right time, obviously synchronistically. Once you're tuned in, like things start to just come to you, right? And I saw an excerpt from the initiation, the way of initiation. I saw an excerpt from it on TikTok, and I was just like, I have to have this book. And then I found this collection of books from Rudolf Steiner, absolutely essential. Tied so much stuff together, and it's part of why I feel like everything's come to a point where it's like I've got the eye is open, right? It's like tuned in, and anyway, yeah, it's just inevitable that you're going to have to go through this stuff. And earlier I said when you're walking this path correctly, because trust me, man, it's hard. And if you're on any point of this journey, it's hard. And part of it leaves you vulnerable to shortcuts. And we've talked about this in past episodes in season 1 and season 2, where I, read these excerpts from Manly P. Hall or Omran Mikhail Ivanov, where they're talking about the black path, the dark path. And when you get into the occult and you start reading into the hidden knowledge of the past, it's very easy to get taken by the shadow. So the shadow is going to try to get you to take shortcuts. And unfortunately, a lot of people on the spiritual path that have had an awakening have been taken off by shortcuts. It's really easy to get lost in the dark and to take the wider path that offers you shortcuts to abundance, right? Because that's what everybody wants when they have their awakening. Is like I want to manipulate reality and give me some money, because I mean abundance is spiritual, right? Like money is very spiritual. And it's an energy form, and but if you get taken off the razor's edge of the narrow way of the white path, you're going to be manipulated and encouraged and tempted to take shortcuts to get that material abundance. And it's once you really start on this path of alchemy, you understand that it's not about changing lead to gold. It's not about the gold, physical gold, like ooh, gold. That's not the object of alchemy. It's spiritual. It's inner gold that you're transmuting your lead self, your material self, your low vibrational root chakra self, right? The lower desires, the lower level. You're transmuting that lead into gold, right? That's the metaphor, right? It's a metaphor. It's not about changing real lead into gold. It's just that's a mystical allegory. And so, but a lot of people get taken by that materialism because it's hard not to in this 3D reality because the materialism is what rules here. It's the cube of Saturn, right? It's the urge to um, you know, become that type of person that has no limits and has no rules, right? And so there's a lot of pitfalls that you can fall into when you're on this path.
Well, I want to add to that because I believe that it is accomplishable. And what I would say is, now that we've just entered year one, I would have to say that the last 9 years have more than anything taught me, like, in order for me to understand what I am to become, I have to unbecome first, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely,
And
dude.
so
You have to
I
be
feel
shattered and make and put the pieces back together. There's no other
right,
way.
right, 100%. And I feel like that's probably where we're all at right now. It's or at least somewhere in that path. Either we're just starting the unbecoming or we're closing out the unbecoming. We're not all at the same time. It just depends on your level of understanding and perception, right, of our matrix or of our reality. But yeah, I think that ultimately, like, that you can get the identity, the self identity from the unbecoming part, because the truth is no one can tell you who you are. You have to choose your identity. You have to say, this is who I am. That's why I said we're all chosen,
Mhm.
because we're all the one, we all have the opportunity to say, this is the reality I choose for myself, and embody that reality. And whatever that reality is has a set of steps that you must take so that you can actually materialize or manifest said reality, right? It's this is why I always go back, and if you go back and watch our previous podcast, I said, when the secret was revealed, they only revealed half the secret. They said that the vision board was enough. They didn't tell you that you had to go work your ass off while looking at the vision board, so you know what you're working towards. It's not enough for you to just have the vision board. You got to work towards it.
I think
So
it's the misperception of magic. Like when people hear the word magic, they think that it's all just gonna go bippity boppity boo, and here's the pumpkin, and now it's a carriage, and it's not. That's not it.
even even
That's
the
a
potions had
distortion.
recipes.
That's a distortion of magic. That's a distortion. That's more sorcery. That's the type of shit that draws you onto the dark path. Is this idea that you can just snap your fingers and oh no now oh the $10,000 just came in my bank account. It's this and that this is unfortunately this social media is rife with spiritual grifters who never made it to the adept stage. They got there somewhere halfway, and then they started using shortcuts, and now they're selling shortcuts to people and saying that that's spirituality. But it's a very very slippery slope. That's why anybody that gets involved in, if you want to go down the occult road, you have to make sure that internally you're ready for the journey, because it's
Yeah,
very easy to get captured by shadow narratives. It's very easy to get captured by this idea of like, oh, my vision will materialize if I do this and this ritual and that ritual, or I call upon this entity or that entity, and it's very that's particle based, right? That's ego driven. And we'll get into that in part two because we're almost done with part one already. And we'll get into the particle and the wave because I had a very profound insight into reality in a lot of ways in my meditation that it correlates to the double slit experiment. And I'll get into that. You can look this up. I would encourage you to look up the double slit experiment because it's a very profound experiment on light and the nature of light. And this is documented in science. So I want to get into that in part two and really dive into the particle and the wave and the understanding that it brings to really apply this to yourself and to consciousness. It's really groundbreaking stuff. Looking forward to talking about it because I feel like it's something. One of the gifts that I think I've been given is the ability to take very complex spiritual concepts and be able to condense it into a digestible form for the masses. And I think that's what my purpose is in a lot of ways. So we're going to do that in part two. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us on this season 2.5 special edition. We'll be right back.
Sweet.
Welcome back to this very special season 2.5 edition of Quantum Alchemists. And before we left off in part one about the double slit experiment, which I will demonstrate for you guys real quick. And this experiment was dealing with the nature of light. There are scientists that said, oh, light's a particle. And other scientists saying, no, it's a wave. So this experiment was designed to record light and its properties and its characteristics and behaviors. So what they had, right? They had a light source. We'll use this light. They had a light source. They had a wall with two slits in it, two holes, and then they had another wall that was recording the results. And as you see, the light goes through the two slits, right? And makes a definite pattern on the wall. See that? It's very obvious, right? But they did that, right? And they observed the result, and the result was what you guys just saw. It was like there's a definite hole. The light makes a definite pattern where the two holes are. Now and then they had another variable. The variable was non-observation. So they turned the light on and allowed the wall to record the result. And to their shock and surprise, the light was sprayed, the light pattern was sprayed across the recording wall. So the resulting, what's
Can you
that?
show us? Can you show us an experiment with the paper and the light, or no, not quite?
Well, we would have to not observe it. I don't think
Oh,
there's not a way to account for that variable in this setup. Like, but they had the same
got
setup.
you.
They had the light and the wall, right? They had the light and the wall, and then they just didn't look, right? And instead of having a pattern like that, where you could see distinctly in the two spots, like at the focused area of the light on the wall, it was sprayed across the wall where the slits were at. Obviously, it still went through the slits, but instead of having the shape of the slit on the wall, it was sprayed randomly. So this was a shocking result to the scientists because what that illustrated was the fact that light is not neither a particle or a wave. It had both properties depending on an observer, which is pretty mind-boggling, and I'll tell you why. So what that tells us is that light changes based on a biological observer,
Consciousness.
right? So
Consciousness.
we change the nature of light based on whether or not we observe light. And that is mind boggling. It is beyond the scope of what science can explain. And really, what it shows you is that we, as biological observers, change reality with our observation because light is the basic, light is energy. Light is energy and everything's energy. All that matter is light condensed into a solid, right? But everything is light, everything is energy. So it was really groundbreaking research because they realized that we actually change the nature of reality with our observation. So in a lot of ways, it kind of speaks to the possibility of a holographic world. Like we actually bring light to a particle, right? We change it from a wave when there's no observation to a particle. We make the light take shape and form. And so if you really can wrap your head around how profound this realization is, it really speaks to a lot of other things. And this is something that I came to in meditation was that this same thing applies to consciousness because light is consciousness. Light is matter, or light is energy. Matter is light condensed to a vibration of solid. But you look at this desk here at the atom level, atomic level, the particle level, and it's empty space mostly, right? We know this through science. Science explains this to us. Like I, as a solid being, am mostly empty space, and all that is keeps it all together is the particles, attracting each other, right? So consciousness acts in the same way as light, in that we are all particles of consciousness. Each individual person is a particle of consciousness. Your ego, your identity, yourself, your personality is a particle of consciousness focused into a being, which is us. Now, when you get into transcendental meditation, and a lot of these wise men and gurus or Buddhists or whatever, the monks, when they go into meditation, they talk about the oneness. Or whether you use like mind altering drugs, you come to these revelations that everything's one, right? And everyone's heard this concept before, but not everyone has grasped it. And what this is when consciousness is focused on by an observer, we are a particle, we are an ego, we are a person, right? And that's where we get our identity from. That's where we get our personality from, is because we're in a particle state. We are observing reality and changing light into particles, but we are also giving form to the reality um, itself and to our own identity itself as a part in a particle state. When you go into meditation, that's why you observe, people are able to observe the oneness because your consciousness joins the wave. And this kind of speaks to this, goes along with like what Rumi was saying. And I've quoted this many times on this podcast. You're not a drop in the ocean, you're the entire ocean in a drop, right? So you may think that you're this drop in the ocean, a little particle of existence in reality, but in reality, you are the ocean. And
That
that,
sounds like what makes astral projecting possible.
yes, that's why all of this is possible, because your body is only a focused point of consciousness. But when you step back and leave the observational mode of this body, right? When you're getting to a meditative state, this explains meditation and the meditative state and why oneness, this philosophy of oneness exists, because you have to come out of the ego, right? You have to leave the ego and the body and that concept of I am Brandon, or he is Alex. And once you are able to get beyond the particle state of consciousness, where you're just this focused um, point of consciousness, you see and you understand that God is all
I am
encompassing.
you and you are me.
And that's why, yeah, that's why people say that. And a lot of people who have never experienced this will dismiss that as, oh, that's just hooey, that's just bullshit. Of course I'm me and you're you, because they see the
No, no,
separation.
no, you are me and I am you.
Yeah, but that's because the particle state of consciousness is what our entire reality and all of our education system and the religions and everything, it keeps us into the particle state, and where we can't see the oneness. But when you experiment with psychedelics, you achieve a certain level of meditation, and you really come to an understanding of consciousness, and God grants you the ability to become the wave with him. And this is just a step along the initiative path, is once you reach a certain level of understanding that all is one. And this double slit experiment illustrates that in a way that is very tangible, where you can point to this experiment and see the nature of light, and then you can also look at that the bigger picture and say this is just a window into the nature of consciousness itself. And that is why some people aren't able to grasp the concept of oneness, because they're in a particle state and they've never allowed themselves to step back from the observer, so observing themselves, because you're not really your thoughts, you're not really your body, and then science itself has said consciousness is not local to the body, right? Like it's coming from somewhere else. We're just downloading consciousness into this body and to the point of the particle where we see what we touch, smell, see, hear, that's reality. But once you step beyond that, you understand that we're in the shadow of a greater world, right? And that's the wave of consciousness, which is God's consciousness. It's why people are able to access that once you reach a certain level of meditation. And I had this revelation while I was meditating. It was almost like I was gifted with this understanding to give to others, like to try to simplify this concept for people and show you there is a tangible experiment with light where they discovered this. So it's not like uh, I think we're coming into this age of awareness and understanding where all the puzzle pieces get put together and we start to understand the things that aren't tangible more, like the intangible world that we are in the shadow of in this physical world. There is a spiritual world, and there are things that science, the tangible science, the institutionalized science, doesn't want to allow us to learn, because then that throws into question all the tangible science in the institution of science, the dogma, the religion of science that it has become in this day and age. They don't like to acknowledge these types of this double slit experiment. You don't Most people have never heard of it, but it's one of the most profound revelations that science has ever given us, because it gives us a window into how the building blocks of society actually, or it's just building blocks of reality actually work.
Yeah. Can I add something? I saw something here, and I sent you this document when we decided that, well, we talked about the particle and the wave stuff, and I went back looking over it because I wanted to like pull some meaning out of it. And I found something that kind of really popped out at me. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just kind of like go over this stuff. They're just some bullet points, and I want, as a thought experiment, I want you to kind of either agree or disagree and tell me if this makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a particle wave, right? The difference between science and spiritual growth, right? Because like the science, the church doesn't like to acknowledge the science, and the science doesn't acknowledge the church, right? But as a wave, right? Let's consider the wave the inner work, right? The wave is the awareness, the intuition, the meaning making, the identity and flux, right? We talked about these things, and basically resonant truth before language is spoken. Just that, like, is this my absolute truth or not? Now, so this is again, we go back to the inner work, right? And then it says this is where insight arises, this is where healing happens, and this is where self-concept softens. Not sure really quite what that means,
Well, it's just like what I was
but
saying. It's the self concept is the ego. The self concept is I am this thing.
ego,
I am.
yeah,
It's identity, right? It's what a lot of
yeah.
identity politics and the day and age right now is like trying to bog us into identities. Oh, you're a this. You're a Republican, and you're a Democrat. You're gay. You're straight. You're a woman. You're a man. It's like.
So that's the wave. So that's the wave, right? Now it says for the particle, so the wave is the inner work, and the particle is embodied life. Where the particle now are the boundaries, the choices, the commitments, the behavior, and the responsibility, or I guess that, like, going back to like the declaration of this is who I am, right?
Mhm,
And that is where growth becomes visible, integrity is tested, and values meet reality, right?
mhm.
Is Does what you say really align with what you do? right? This is the
But,
particle test, the
but this
particle
is
and the wave test.
um
So just hold that thought, and I want you to say what you're going to say, but I want to conclude with two things. One of them is spiritual immaturity collapses too soon, right? Which turns insights into dogma, and spiritual avoidance never collapses at all, where it stays in process forever. So you're never actually dealing with the problem. Now, please go ahead with what you're going to say.
so this is relevant to what we were talking about in the pre-talk where I was telling you about all the pictures and stuff that I was creating when I was at my first beginning stages of awakening, where I thought I had my finger on the pulse. I thought I knew it all, and I thought that I was being gifted with all this insight and that I was supposed to tell the world about it and everything. It was like the beginning stages of my spiritual journey. I thought I was already there, right? And then I was ready to tell the world. And everybody goes through this. I mean, this is all the stages of awakening. It's like as soon as you awaken, you want to tell the world, and you want to like show them, oh, look, I have this special insight. And I went through this phase. I was telling Alex in the pre-talk where I was, got hit with this lightning bolt with like this Kundalini activation awakening, and I started making art, just like so my, I have shown off my, like paintings and stuff, my sacred geometry art. But in the beginning stages, I was just compelled to, by this lightning bolt, to start making things, making these images that I were just coming through me. They were just, I was literally like holding a lightning bolt, getting electrocuted with, and making all this stuff. And I was so deep in the wave, right? And I wasn't able to really embody it. Like I was so not rooted in reality. I was so not grounded, and that's the danger in a lot of ways of the spiritual journey. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Is like it's so easy to get, you're so vulnerable in that state that it's easy to get pulled into the dark, into the shadow, and you get caught in shadow narratives because you're not grounded yet, but I was receiving so many revelations and understandings, and it was just like all, it's like pouring into me. And I wanted to share it and show people, look, and if you look back at my Instagram from that period, I was making videos every day and, having, it was, a lot of it was just me channeling my higher self. And some of the stuff I was saying was really profound. And I look back and I'm like, oh, wow, I was touching something, but also in the same breath, I was so far in the ether, so far in the wave, and I hadn't been able to center it into the particle. And that's part of where I'm at this point is like you have to learn to live in both worlds. You can't just go off into the ether into the way and expect to be able to channel that into the particle state of consciousness where it needs to be spread, right? Like you're gonna look like be looked at as a crazy person, and my family was worried about me, and like looking back, I was looking back at some of these old drawings. I still have them in my closet. I was compelled to look through them yesterday, and I had over 100 drawings that I did in a very short period of time. I was just every day making stuff, and like I felt like I was getting prepped for some big mission from the divine, and I had to help people, and which, ultimately I feel is part of my purpose. But I just would, if all my manifestations had come in at that point, I wouldn't have been able to hold it all, right? I was just like a broken cup just spilling out. And it's the importance of going through the stages properly. It's the importance of the initiate's path, right? You can't skip steps. You can't go from particle existence to explain the wave in an overnight. It's taken me more than 2 years to get to this point where I can even um, uh, verbalize this revelation to you guys and explain, the difference in these two levels of consciousness. But as a being that's alive in this 3D world, you have to be able to do both. You can't just be in the
So,
wave and try to get the particles. You can't just be a particle and try to understand the wave. You have to go through an initiation period and a priming and a preparation and you're getting molded by the divine to be able to
so,
live in both states.
and I want to finalize. So, and I'm glad you added all that because that's wonderful. That's great context because the very next thing it said in this document was, and you couldn't have said it better, was maturity is knowing when to stay fluid and when to commit, which is exactly what you were saying right now. Which
Yeah.
is, as you were going through your path, you took you years to really understand to be the I just thought it was a very beautiful correlation, a beautiful alignment in terms of like the conversation that we're having and just reading it on paper just reads differently, and then when you start putting it into context of like real life applications, like wow, like this isn't just a it's like we're talking about one thing, but we're talking about many things that could mean one thing, or one thing that could mean many things. The context changes just depends on the lens that you're looking at it from,
Well, I
which is
mean,
also another
this is
beautiful revelation for me.
this is a it was an AI created document that you're reading off of, right? So what AI is a great tool to condense information, but it doesn't have the real world application to really explain it. I think it really does a great job of contextualizing it, but like it's so you look at the states of matter, right? We have liquid, solid, gas, and then ether, right? There's the fourth state of matter that they've just recently acknowledged. But this correlates
Oh,
with the four
yeah.
elements as well. Is it what's up? What's that?
They actually labeled plasma
Plasma. That's what
the
it was.
fourth stage of matter is plasma.
Yeah. So, we had an incomplete understanding of the states of matter up until recently when they acknowledged plasma. So that you look at it, that correlates with the four elements, right? Earth, water, air, and fire. We got, liquid and water, solid and earth, gas and air, and now plasma and fire, right? So this is also, as an alchemist, you understand, you're brought to an understanding of the elements within yourself. We're a confluation of elements that our bodies are. We have all the elements within us. The reality is embedded with these elements, and it's learning to work with these elements within you and understanding the stages. These elements are also used to signify the states of consciousness, right? And the ancients used these to illustrate, to symbolize the different states of consciousness. But now we know through studying the brain, the different alpha, theta, beta, the gamma, the different brainwave states, like of sleep, of meditation, of consciousness, of conscious being, right? There's all these different states, and it's all correlates with the four elements. And then the states of matter correlate with the four elements. So it's like once you really start to break down the minutia of our reality, all these symbols start to have new life. You understand why the ancients symbolized these things as such, because the numbers and the states and the elements and all this stuff, it all comes together in this is occult knowledge. This is the ability to take all these dots and connect the dots and make a picture out of it. And when you first come across this knowledge, you're like, oh, I've been gifted. I'm special. And you think that, you are some, that's why people get caught in the messianic, like Christ. I must be the devil, or I must be an angel, or you know what I mean? It's like you pedestalize yourself because and this is a problem I see on with a lot of people is like they start talking down to people because they think they have some special knowledge and that they're somehow better than people and it's this is all the different stages, man, and it's like at this point I feel like I've been sharpened to like a sword, I feel like I understand things and I can put things together quicker and then I, like I said, I was looking back at this state of mind I was in when I was creating a lot of these pictures, and I was channeling, next level shit, but like I wasn't in the particle state to accept the wave. Like I still, there's a reason why this stuff is hidden. right? There's a reason why these mystery schools and secret societies and a lot of these, which not all of them are benevolent, don't get me wrong. I don't want to go like putting, the Illuminati on the pedestal, but like there's a reason why you have to be initiated into this knowledge, and you have to. It comes gradually. This path is long and arduous, and you're going to be tested. You're going to be tested to no end. Like the tests really never stop, and enlightenment isn't an end stage. You don't reach enlightenment and be like, well, here I am at enlightenment. It's like you get gifted
Right.
throughout your initiation and throughout your journey. You're gifted with more and more understanding and more knowledge, and you're able to, your cup is able to hold more and grasp it and be able to, I'm at this point now where I've grasped it to a point where I can try to condense it so that people can digest it. And I think that I feel like very strongly that that's my gift, is that the ability to take these concepts that are so foreign or so abstract, and to take the abstract and turn it into form, and like bake bread, right? As a metaphor I've used before. We take all these breadcrumbs, Quantum Alchemists, our whole objective is to take these breadcrumbs that some of them seem to be unrelated, but you put them together and you bake bread with it, and it's like, oh, it all does correlate. There is a connection to all of it, and that's the thing that I think the reason we started this podcast is because we see how scattered and spread a lot of this knowledge is, and it's presented in a certain, way, like certain, like you get in the conspiracy world, and this is one of the problems you and I both had with it, and why we wanted to start this podcast. Because you take this little breadcrumb of knowledge over here, and it's important knowledge, but you take it out of context and you spin it a certain way, and a lot of these people in the conspiracy world, they're selling you something. They're selling you the matrix sponsored version of the truth, and they're selling you, oh, this is the alternative to what they told you. Oh, they didn't tell you everything, and they didn't. But then you're taking this kernel of knowledge and you're not explaining everything because you don't have a grasp of all of it. And that's the biggest problem today with information. We're bogged down by information. We're bombarded with information of all sorts every day. We have the matrix version of the truth that the media spins for you. And then we have the alternate version of the truth that the conspiracy world will bring you. But neither one of them is really like rooted in actual truth. They're both just competing narratives, just like everything's a competing narrative to try to keep you in a particle state where you don't, where you're bogged in division, and everything is about divide and divide and divide. And
You know what, bro? I'm gonna take this segment of you talking for like the last 2 or 3 minutes, and that's gonna be the commercial for the quantum index. Because you
yeah,
you couldn't have set it up any better, bro. That's hilarious.
and no, but that's, bro, when we first started this thing, you and I both were like, man, we're on the cusp of something big, and we got to talk about it. And obviously, we needed to introduce your work to the world, and it was a great way to do it. But even then, I'm looking at 2 years ago, and I thought I was on the cusp, and that things were going to start happening majorly. And then, a year ago, a little over a year ago, 18 months ago, when we started doing our podcast together, we were like, oh man, we feel it, it's coming soon. But then, like, all these other challenges came up in our lives, and we're like, what the fuck, man? Like, how long are we going to have to grind through this shit? But like you look at where we were at then and where we're at now, and it's like the challenges life has brought has it's just been further sharpening the tool, right? Like we're just tools of the divine, and we just needed some extra seasoning. And yes, the vision is still ripe in our mind, and we want it to happen ASAP. But like I'm more committed to the divine timing at this point. I'm not so gung ho about we need results now and I want to see this now. It's like no, it's going with the wave. It's like grabbing a boogie board and riding the wave instead of just being flailing around in the wave and oh, I know we're on to
Well,
something.
it's important to acknowledge divine timing, and I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, uh, and this is kind of a good segue. One of the things that I've been talking about on this podcast for some time is some of my work. I've been doing research in the decentralized space for a while now. And so recently I made some breakthroughs, and the divine timing thing couldn't have struck a better chord because I was telling B, I've actually been sitting on information now since 2023. The ingredients didn't change. What changed is my understanding of the ingredients and how to apply them to create something that actually worked and to create something that would be meaningful and for like utility, right? Utilitarian wise. And so it wasn't until maybe like a couple weeks ago, like just before Christmas. Um, Mind you, I've been sitting there like feeding my data to AI for months, training it, adjusting its understanding of my work until it came back with this understanding. It concluded like, aha, I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to build like a cloud of meaning. And then it was like, oh, I guess I kind of am trying to do that. And the reason why that's even relevant to what B was saying was, you know, we all talk about different things. We all actually could be talking about the same exact thing and have completely different meanings to what we're talking about. So it's not what we're talking about, it's the depth of the understanding of what we're talking about and at what surface you're speaking about them. And so when you're talking about things, in the material, not just like interpersonal, we're talking about enterprise, business, things like that, like all these things, even legal and compliance is highly dependent upon definition and meaning of things. Because that's where they operate. That's the area they navigate. They navigate the gray areas, which is, well, if you broke a rule, what are the consequences? Right? But if the rule that you're breaking has, there's like there's flexibility in the rule. It's like, well, did you really break it or you just bent the rule? Well, we don't know because things don't have a concrete definition, at least not right now. There's no place that we can go to reference and say like a neutral place and say, hey, does this thing for me as it does for B, as it does for the neighbor, as it means for someone across the country or across the world. And so part of my work has unlocked this very space now where now we can actually start attributing meaning to things. And in a weird way, it's a counterintuitive because it's like retrofitting old systems. If you wanted to modernize an old system without having to completely like duel with their process, the the way to do it is to establish the meaning of what their processes are, and then they can rebuild internally. And I know I'm losing everyone. It's okay. The point is that this is a new area of science, of computer science. It's actually attached to an area of complexity science and econophysics. I'm even going to go as bold as calling it a form of quantum sociology, which is a study of people at nanoscale. And so there's a lot of things that this implies. I really don't have all the answers. I can tell you that we discovered something new. It doesn't exist. It hasn't existed before 2 weeks ago. I've done a lot of like trying to dig into the ethers, dig into cyberspace to see what I could find on this. Like if anyone's doing this type of research, it doesn't exist right now. This is like MIT level type of work. It falls under like grad level studies, and this is like completely uncharted territory. So we don't know what it is. There's probably going to be a whole new field of science around this. AI and automation um, highly depends on this type of infrastructure to be built. If you want to have a fully integrated society where you have what's called quote unquote a smart city, where like all of your public works and all of your systems talk to each other and they're fully autonomous, we can now achieve that. I truly believe that with this layer that have just been identified, we can actually make that happen. It's going to probably take 10, 15 years of work trying to get it there, but my understanding from trying to break this model over and over again is if we don't apply not necessarily that layer, that model, but a model like it, like AI and automation is pretty much dead in the water as we speak. The most automation that you could see right now is probably as far as it's going to get if we don't integrate this new conceptual layer. So all of this, and I'm saving this for the end of the podcast for this one because it's all tied, it's all relevant to spirituality. It's all part of the particle or the wave, and I was trying to explain earlier that these things align and they collapse on top of one another. So we're talking about the same things at different depths. And the understanding changes the further deeper. The deeper you go, the more meaning that the stuff I'm telling you has. B has a different understanding about this stuff than the viewer has, and other viewers might have more technical understanding of what I just said than the spiritual side of things, even though it's the exact same thing. I ran a correlation between, what this discovery layer was and what the parallel is between the Akashic records and this. And it pretty much gave me a parallel saying, yeah, you pretty much discovered the digital Akashic records in not so many words. So, and the Akashic records are all about meaning. It's all about meaning before action takes place because you have every timeline available to you, just depends on what action you take. Karma doesn't happen pre-decision making. Karma happens after you take action. That's why you get the karma if it was good or if it was bad. Or
Cause and
actually, if it was
effect.
bad, cause and effect, right? If it was good, you get dharma. If it was bad, you get karma, right? So this all goes back to like decision making, and you're not going to make decisions on things that you don't understand, which means you have to go back to what does it mean? What are we deciding on? This is why meaning and semantics and context is so important, especially as it relates to language, the things that you speak. Abracadabra, I am that I am, or what is it? I say that I am, or
Oh, I am that I am
I
that.
am
Yeah.
I am what I say. I am what I say, and I am as I say, or say something like that. I forget. Sorry, um, but it's so important because yes, it all ties back to language. It ties back to understanding of things. It ties back to memory and how we recall information. Is the information that we recall all? Do we have a consensus on what history was, which we all know, or I should say, most of us know that history is constantly being rewritten. If you go and try and find information on Tartaria and on ancient civilizations, if you look at the Naga people and you know and all the Sumerians and stuff like that, you're not going to find a lot of information because it's just a lot of it has just disappeared over time, right? They didn't have a really great record keeping. They had stone tablets that they put shit into. You feel me? Like it wasn't necessarily the most efficient of
And that's all
records.
that we got left of who maybe they were using paper that just disintegrated over time. We don't know other than the stone tablets they left
We
behind
don't.
what their whole society entailed. Maybe they had a really complex society with a lot of technology that just got lost over time from a cataclysm or something. We don't know.
Right, and I truly believe that technology that we have today is more sophisticated versions of things that we've always had access to,
Hmm.
like the internet, things like that. Like we used to have access to this types of stuff without the tools. We used to be able to keep. Now we have to externalize it to devices and things like that. But this isn't new stuff. And I believe we're just rediscovering ancient technologies or ancient tools that we've had access to. Um,
We got about a
so
minute left. Let's cut it off there
yeah,
and come back and we'll wrap it up and put a little shiny bow on this 2.5 season edition. This very special edition of Quantum Alchemists. We'll come back. We'll be right back to conclude this special episode. And we're back to wrap up this special edition of Quantum Alchemists. We thank you We thank you for joining us, and we hope you guys enjoy this content that we're bringing you. It's been a while. It's been well over I think 6 months. I think since we wrapped episode two, or I mean season two, and a lot of stuff's been happening in the world, in our lives, and we're not quite at the point where we're ready to start season three and start doing this regularly, but we just want to kind of bring you this little special edition just to kind of tell you we're still out here. Hi, we're still here, and it's a different stage of the journey for both of us, and I feel like we're getting closer to the realization of what the mission eventually or originally was in the first place. And Alex looks like a
Good.
force ghost. You look like a force ghost from
I look like
Star Wars. the,
that's funny.
the
Yeah,
Jedi
I
ghost.
mean, this kind of that's funny. I mean, this kind of touches upon like what we talked about, the Jedi Ghost. That's funny. I just understood what you were saying. But when we first started doing this podcast, when we started you told you that I want stuff because there was a bridge there that I didn't really quite know how to get there. I could see it in my life. I could see it in my life because I was practicing with being a certain way of living my life, and as a result of that, things started revealing themselves to me. This path of unbecoming has been very revealing, and I wouldn't be sitting here trying to. First of all, one of the things I remember we talked about early on was, you say you have a really good way of turning really complex things into simple terms that people can understand, and that was almost like one of the things that I was like, perfect. You're the guy because I gotta give you all the complexity that I have in my brain and pass it off to you so you could chop it all down and be like, here you go, here's that bread that we're baking that you're talking about earlier. Because to think at this capacity, for one, it's not human. Okay, and I say that because most people cannot operate at this level all the time, and that's why there's very few people that do. And to be able to do this also means my ability to communicate with people also shortens. It gets a lot smaller because I'm operating at this high frequency, and now everything I spit out turns sounds like I'm a robot, or like I sound like AI, and I'm like the farthest from that. I'm like a human channel, for the stuff that we as humans need that AI doesn't understand or can't account for. So I'm like that buffer that's like, hey, machine brain, I need you to do things that humans need, not just the machine part, because we're still human. So I'm like, I'm operating that in between space, which makes my communication to the average person really difficult. So um, before we conclude this, I want to say thank you so much, and I love you for being my buffer. For trying to speak and say things that in most other cases I would have an extremely difficult time doing, if it wasn't you that like through with you, that you drew it out, recap and touch up on what I said to even for the layman to be able to understand what I just said. So thank you. It's not an easy job. It's not an easy position to be in, trying to take in all this extremely complex information and try and synthesize it. But I appreciate your efforts, and you're doing a really fantastic job, by the way. Um, a
Thank
much
you.
better job than I could have done, obviously, because I have a hard time translating. So,
That's why we're
so
such
B is
a
my
that's why we're such a good team, man. Because you're the bridge between AI and humans, and I'm the bridge between the your information and people that can digest it on a wide scale. Because like you're that bridge that can speak to the machines, and you can speak to me, and then I can speak to it's like this bridge. Like you're half the bridge, and I'm the other half. and that's why we've been put together by the universe, by source. And
I
it's
truly believe that. I truly believe it.
it it helps me because when you're in this space, when you've gone through these experiences, you're constantly searching for purpose. You're okay. You go through these complex experiences that it's hard to explain to the average person who hasn't gone through it, and you wonder, like, there's got to be a reason why all this happened. And we met at a time where we both were kind of coming out of this isolation of, like, you had your things that your revelations and your information that you are relevant to, from your standpoint, your expertise. I was coming out of it, and we kind of met at the perfect time. And then but we both were like, okay, we've been put together for a purpose. We found that purpose in each other, right? Because we're both searching for purpose coming out of isolation. Like, there has to be a reason that I have this vision. There has to be a reason why all these things happen. And then we had already met, but like we really connected on a level where we're like, okay, I see someone that's been through similar experiences, and I feel like it's that synchronistic thing where you felt like, the two fingers touching, right? Okay, we complete the circuit, and
Yeah,
now we have a common purpose. We found that purpose that we were
right.
so diligently looking for, and then we're sitting around waiting, like looking at our watch. Like, where's this? Where's it? Where's the vision? Like, we're together. We obviously have this common goal and this common purpose, and we were put together for a reason. So now we're collectively, the two of us are looking for the purpose to come and materialize. And it's been over a year, and we're like, why do we have to keep going through this shit? I thought we were at a point where stuff was going to happen. So I have to stress to people who maybe have just come to the awakening period. You're in the early stages, and you're expecting results to come. It's like, you got to be patient, because it's not your timing, it's divine timing. You have the vision's going to materialize, but you're still at the early stages of development. And like, you still have to allow yourself to develop and be able to, like I said earlier, function in the wave and the particle, and be able to bring it together, and be centered. And if that takes time, and it takes a lot of testing and a lot of just going through it, and it's not easy, and it's not going to just come overnight. And don't let that bog you down. Don't let that discourage you, or turn back and be like, I guess I was just delusional. I was just delulu, and this is all
Oh,
just
please don't.
nonsense.
Please don't.
If you're on the path, keep walking the path, because the steps that you're taking in the
Yeah.
dark, eventually you're going to start feeling that solid ground, and be like, okay. And then it all makes sense, because then it's like, okay, that's why I wasn't ready yet. That's why I didn't come at that time. That's why we had to go through this, because there's more layers of the onion to peel. You think that you're in the center of the onion, but you're on the outside. You're peeling through the skin still.
Mm.
Like there's a lot of development that has to happen on this path of initiation. Like,
I,
start reading
I
stuff.
actually
Read
want to.
Manly P. Hall. Read Rudolf Steiner. Find information that will keep you centered, because once you start realizing that a lot of other people have gone through this, maybe not a huge amount, but there are people that have gone through this and have come out the other side, and it's very valuable to get that on understanding that you're not alone. um, and it can feel very lonely at times, because people around you probably don't, they think you're nuts, or they don't understand you, or people have fallen out of your life, and you're just on this island. You feel like, I'm all alone. But get the literature of these, adepts,
Yeah.
and it's out there. What were you gonna
I
say?
actually want to add. I actually want to add something. I want to give a little bit of a testimony because, and this goes to that whole like it takes time and like don't be surprised with the results right away. I go back to like if any of you haven't seen the original interview that even got this podcast started with B and I, go back to his personal podcast, Talking to Strangers, and watch the tell all because in that podcast, I reveal that I have a pretty dark past. I when I was 19 years old ended up getting arrested and I spent some time in prison. Um, what most people don't know is the times and the dates and all that stuff. So I'm 39 now. The event happened uh December 23rd. of 2005. And um so that happened December 23rd, 2005. Fast forward almost 20 years to the day. So I ruined my life at 19, right? Fast forward the clock, right? 20 years later. Now, mind you, I knew when I was 19 and I got and everything happened, I knew my life was pretty much over. Like at the time, I was enlisted to go to the Navy. I was supposed to go to military intelligence. Like I had my life set for me. At 19, I destroyed it. So I've spent literally consciously, I have spent since the age of 19 all up until now trying to redeem myself because I knew that I had made such a big fuck up in my life and I didn't know how I was going to do it. But in 2017, again, the irony, December 17th, 2017 was when I discovered that I had Bitcoin in my wallet. I mean, I had been dabbling with crypto since 2012, but in December of 2017 was when it hit $8,000. So I had an eighth of a Bitcoin. I had $1,000 in my account, and I've already said all this before, but just summarizing real quick. That's what got me in the whole decentralization tech space. I was actually running a record label at the time, and I quit my record label. I quit bartending. I quit everything, and I just did the research. From December 2017, fast forward till December 2025, which is 8 years later. But 8 years later, however, 20 years prior to that, I had committed this huge fuck up. Now, what I'm saying is, guys, B was right. It takes time. I made a really big fuck up, but I consciously knew I had to redeem myself. I didn't know what that was going to be. Fast forward from 2025 to 2017, that's 12 years. And then from 2017 to 2025, that's 8 years, right? I didn't actually complete this discovery, this new layer identity, whatever it was, whatever revelation was given to me. It didn't come until 20 years later. But that's how much work I had to put in. And it's going to sound very discouraging for some of you guys. Like, oh man, I don't want to put in 20 years worth of work. It's like, but that you're missing the point. It took me 20 years because I'm doing something that no one has done before. And I don't expect everyone to do something like that. Everyone has, again, purpose. We all have purpose that we can align with things and we can resonate with. And not everyone has to choose to be a rocket scientist or to be an astronaut. Some people want to do something like just be a doctor, be an artist, or, start a podcast. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Go chase your dreams, right? I had a dream that I knew that I was extremely different path. Almost set big dreams for yourself, set realistic goals for yourself. Maybe even just something that could be achievable, right? And just know that even if it takes you 20 years, for me, it's been the journey, the path of me working towards this redemption. That's what makes me happy. That's why when people see me, like, why is this guy like I've always seen people have asked me, like, why do you have a smile on your face? Like, because I'm happy to be alive and happy that I'm working towards something that I'm happy about, something that makes me that I'm passionate about doing. It doesn't really matter if I ever really get there or not. It's the fact that I was trying to work towards something that really meant something to me. And that's the part where I was talking about earlier about finding that inner happiness, making your inner child happy. And so it took me 20 years to get to this point, and it doesn't have to take you 20 years. You, viewer, you be. The point is, if you apply, you the information that we're giving you, depend how upside down your life is right now will determine how drastic of a change it makes. Depends on how you alter, you switch your mind, your mental state, right? But your reality is reflective of your. We go back to the observer. If you're the observer in your own reality, and your reality is chaotic, you are literally creating your reality. If you withdraw yourself from that chaos, you're like, I'm gonna go put myself in something more calm, more manageable. You have every right to do that, to withdraw yourself and go, and you don't have to invest your energy or time into a space, even if you're there physically. You don't have to anchor your energy there. Like B is very B is energy there. He is an alchemist. B is going to push. He's going to allow the energies to work through him, either flow, and they're going to their appropriate places because they should not affect how B shows up in this 3D world, because navigating 5D through consciousness and reflecting through 3D in his actions, because that's what everyone else outside of him perceives, right? But the vision is there. He wants to show up for give at some point, and it will change. And this is the same mentality that I've had, and that most successful people that I know have had is, you keep at something, knowing that you're working towards. If you see improvement, then you're heading in the right direction. If you start to see digression or regression, then you're going in the wrong way. That's kind of the best way I could put it for you. And I mean this for the viewers. You're going to be put in new situations, new environments that need to have the energy cleared. You, as a conscious being, it's on you, on the responsibility to understand you are in a new environment, new energies. You have to let them work through you, and you have to push the energies outside of you so that they don't run you, you run them. But you have to go and establish yourself, go establish your presence, create your boundaries, establish your um what your limitations are and are not. Meaning, we all have hard lines. And we all have things that we're not willing to do at any cause, to any for anything. And when those things are when we're pushed to be flexible on boundaries, on our hard lines, that's when we're pushed to make decisions. We're either going to change, going to adapt, and we're going to conform, right? And if the situation calls, all right,
Yeah, we're experiencing some very
if
profound
the
technical.
temperature isn't good,
We're having some connection issues, Alex. I think we should probably just wrap it up, just so we
it's
don't.
okay.
Yeah, it's I just lost connection completely, and then it rebooted. So, no,
No
yeah,
worries. We're giving too much alpha, too much alpha.
yeah, it's. I think we overloaded the internet with good information. We had to get zapped. Um, but
Hard
just to
reset.
basically, it's really important that you find your happiness in the journey, because if you're not happy in the journey, you're not going to be happy at the destination. And a lot of
Facts.
this spiritual work is about finding that calm in the chaos, like Alex said, the eye of the storm. You have to learn to be the eye in the storm, and understand that you're going to be faced with chaos and challenges, and you're going to be faced with setbacks and disappointments, and you can't let that mess with your resolve. You can't let that throw you off your course. You have your vision for a reason, and it's ultimately going to be realized if you stay the course and take. This is something I told my mom, because she's going through a lot of challenges, and a lot of it throws her into like panic and emotional situations. And I told her, I was like, we just have to take every day as just rise to the challenge. Just take the challenge as okay. This is something I have to work through. This is and really kind of enjoy the challenge of it. That's really what it comes down to. Is you have to learn to enjoy the challenges that you face and understand that the challenges are there because you're making progress. If it's all smooth sailing, then you're probably on the wrong course. You're probably gonna, like Alex
Yeah.
said, you're probably slightly tilted off of your actual destination if everything is smooth. If you don't face any resistance, then you're probably on the wrong path. So when you face resistance and you face obstacles and setbacks and think perceived setbacks, because there really are no setbacks. Like I was saying, like 2 years ago when I started this journey, I thought I was on the cusp of some major stuff, and then things never came. And it doesn't mean it's never gonna come. I still have my vision. I still know where I'm headed. I'm just more seasoned and ready for the journey at this point. Now I'm like, I have resolve, and I know that, man, I've been through it all. I've been through so much, and I'm just ready for the next challenge because I know that I am equipped to deal with the journey. And you have to find happiness in that fact. Yeah, another challenge, bring it on, motherfucker. You gonna throw me another curveball, universe? I learned to hit the curve. I'm hitting it the other way for a homer. Like, like you have to learn to adapt and maintain your resolve because the pushback, yeah, it is a wave. It's not straight. It's not a straight shot. And
Ride the wave.
time is not linear. Time is a cycle. So you understand you're going through cycles. You can either cycle up or you can cycle back down, and then you got to go even further to that destination. So maintain your composure in the midst of suffering, in the midst of setbacks, and rise to your challenges because your challenges are telling you you're on the right path. So we're having
I love
connection
that.
issues. We're having connection issues. I don't want to drag this out too far. I came across when we were on break, I came across a very profound Omran Mikhail Ivanov quote that really kind of sums up what we were talking about today. And I'll end with that. And I think that's a good place to end it. This speaks to synchronicity, right? We're talking about this subject, and boom, on my social media comes a quote that sums up everything we're talking about. So this is from Omran Mikhail Ivanov. He's a guy that I've drawn a lot of wisdom from. He is a writer and philosopher and mystic, and it's really profound. So check out this quote. If the cells of our body were fully conscious of themselves, they would feel distinct from one another. For depending on which organ they belong to, their functions vary. The heart works in one way, the stomach, the kidneys, and the liver in other ways. But if these same cells were able to go one step further in their understanding, they would see that they are all embraced and united by one single being, a human being. The same can be said of human beings. Each one represents a cell of the great cosmic body. The Creator is the only being who really exists, and humans are the scattered cells of his body. But as the consciousness of these cells is not united, they continually oppose and conflict with each other. Humans believe their struggles and confrontations are justified, and sometimes are even proud of them when they think they are defending some great cause. There's really nothing to be proud of. Their conflicts are simply the result of their ignorance. They do not realize that they belong to one great body of God. Omran Mikhail Ivanov.
Beautifully said. Perfect.
Yeah. What better way to sum up that episode than the wave, the particle and the wave? You're
That's
a
it.
cell, you're a particle of consciousness in the wave of consciousness that is the creator. So hope you guys
All
enjoyed that
right.
very special episode
Yeah.
of Quantum Alchemists. We will be back very soon. Yeah, we'll be
I
back
was gonna
very
say,
soon. What's up?
I was gonna say, that's all, folks.
That's all for this one. Tune in very soon. Keep up with the YouTube channel and on our social media. I'm Mr. Alchemistic on Instagram. Alex is Alex Romero Vingian, or is it just Romero Vingian?
It's just Romero Vingian, yeah.
So Romero Vingian on Instagram. We'll have all the relevant links and stuff to get in contact with us. If you guys like our content, you want to discuss things with us, you guys want to engage with the Quantum Alchemists, we are open to discussion. And please like, share, and subscribe this content. It's very important to get it out there and spread this awareness and ride the wave. Till next time,
Ooh.
we love you.
Peace.